Onda UNED. Imagen y sonido, hasta donde estés. Un espacio de la Escuela de Ciencias Sociales y Humanidades de la UNED. Hasta donde estés. Onda UNED. Acortando distancias.
Muy buenos días, damos la bienvenida a todos los que nos siguen desde México, Colombia, Brasil e India. Queremos darles la bienvenida al webinar que estaremos hoy presentando con el tema El nacimiento de un paradigma de desarrollo alternativo, el despliegue del modelo de producción transformador. A continuación, daremos espacio para el señor don Leandro, desde Brasil, que nos dará las palabras de bienvenida.
Olá, buenos dias a todos y todas que nos escuchan. Es un placer increíble estar acá. Yo, Leandro Moraes, profesor de la Universidad Estadual Paulista, UNESP, y también miembro y acá representando el CIRIEC Brasil, tengo el honor de poder organizar, junto con un equipo de CIRIECs de Latinoamérica, una presentación de una persona que nos brindará con una reflexión a partir de elementos muy importantes que tratará de la idea de alternativa para pensar modelos de desarrollo y también para padrones de desarrollo más inclusivo, más cohesivo, que es profesor Sunil Ray. Profesor Sunil Ray es un amigo de un tiempo. Tuve la oportunidad de tener estado en India por 3 veces, incluso en septiembre de este año por la última vez, donde hemos estado por 3 días discutiendo sobre estos temas. Y cuando yo hice la invitación para profesor Sunil hablar sobre el cuadro y sobre los estudios que está impartiendo. Profesor Sunil es profesor desde más de 35 años, con una experiencia muy grande en India y también en otras partes, después podemos hablar más. Pero antes quería registrar mi agradecimiento en nombre del profesor Federico Libonilla de Costa Rica, todo el equipo que desde el inicio fue muy receptivo, muy receptivo, y no ha mensurado esfuerzos para hacer real este acontecimiento de hoy. Y también mis amigos del CIRIEC de Colombia, del CIRIEC de México y todos que nos acompañan. Entonces, sin más, registro acá mi felicidad, mi alegría, mi honor de estar haciendo el Objetivo de Desarrollo Sostenible número 17, que son parcerías, y acá tenemos parcería entre países y de los demás que nos escuchan, con India y con Latinoamérica. Muchas gracias por toda la oportunidad y acá estaré muy atento para escuchar al profesor y maestro Sunil y después las reflexiones colectivas de todo el grupo y de los que nos acompañan. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias al doctor Leandro Pereira Moraes desde Brasil. A continuación le damos el espacio al doctor Roberto Cañedo Villarreal, quien es coordinador de la Maestría de Economía Social de la Universidad Autónoma de Guerrero y presidente de CIRIEC México. Don Roberto, adelante, por favor.
Muchas gracias, Pamela. Muchas gracias a todos. Pues realmente, como dice Leandro, este es un momento muy importante, en particular para los CIRIECs en Latinoamérica, pero evidentemente para todo el mundo. El hecho de estar abriendo un ciclo de discusión, de análisis, de reflexión sobre la necesidad de una nueva forma de hacer economía. Desde la maestría en Economía Social de la Universidad Autónoma de Guerrero, desde CIRIEC México, les damos la gran bienvenida y nos sentimos orgullosos de ser parte de este gran proceso que se abre el día de hoy. Esperamos que todos tengamos la oportunidad de reflexionar conjuntamente con el doctor Sunil y también continuar con este proceso. De hecho, estamos abriendo ya también un seminario sobre las cuentas satélite de la economía social en Iberoamérica, a partir precisamente de la convocatoria de los CIRIEX en Latinoamérica. Pues felicidades a todos, me felicito a mí mismo por estar en este proceso, sí, y los invito a que reflexionemos juntos sobre una nueva forma de hacer economía, donde las personas sean lo más importante y la protección, la preservación de la naturaleza. Muchas gracias, Pamela, muchas gracias a todos por su participación.
Muchas gracias, don Roberto. Seguidamente le damos el paso al doctor Juan Fernando Álvarez, profesor de la Universidad Javeriana y presidente del Comité Científico de CIRIEC Colombia. Adelante, don Juan. Adelante.
Muchísimas gracias, Pamela, y muchísimas gracias a UNED, a Leandro, a Sunil, a todo el equipo que de distintos espacios institucionales juntan sus fuerzas para encontrarnos, para globalizar, mundializar formas alternativas de pensar la economía social y solidaria, el desarrollo, y si cabe incluso poner en cuestión estas expresiones, buscar un camino auténtico, un camino que una las distintas iniciativas de nuestras sociedades, igual en Brasil, en Colombia, en México o en la India. Y un saludo especial a Federico Libonilla, quien con su equipo desde la UNED genera estos espacios para encontrarnos, para fortalecer el conocimiento. Finalmente, cuando de desarrollos alternativos se trata, también hablamos de comunidades académicas que se encuentran desde sus diferencias y desde sus similitudes para trazar caminos que nos envuelvan en otro relato, en otra forma de dar la alternatividad al desarrollo. Muchas gracias. Un abrazo grande desde CIRIEC Colombia, pero presente desde Brasil.
Muchas gracias, don Juan Fernando. A continuación, el espacio del doctor Federico Libonilla, director de la Escuela de Ciencias de la Administración y director de CIRIEC Costa Rica y representante para América. Don Federico.
Muchas gracias, doña Pamela. Good evening al doctor Sunil. Buenos días para nosotros, y si nos están siguiendo en Europa, porque CIRIEC Internacional estuvo compartiendo, me dijeron, esta actividad que estamos haciendo, pues buenas tardes. Hoy nuevamente marcamos un hito importante de la unión de los CIRIEC de Latinoamérica, principalmente México, Colombia, Brasil y Costa Rica, en este ciclo de pensamiento y traer los pensamientos del otro lado del mundo, de lugares exóticos como es la India, y para aprender, construir cada día más, y para nuestro conocimiento y todas las personas que podamos permear desde nuestro CIRIEC, desde Latinoamérica para el mundo. Igualmente, nuestro rector, que es el presidente de CIRIEC Costa Rica, don Rodrigo Arias Camacho, no puede estar hoy, dado que hacemos un congreso cada 5 años universitario para ver las nuevas políticas, y el día de ayer, hoy y mañana estamos en eso. Yo tengo que sumarme un rato, como autoridad, porque tenemos que votar, pero don Rodrigo muy encarecidamente les pide las disculpas y la comprensión del caso, ya que él es el que tiene que presidir este congreso de políticas de la Universidad Estatal a Distancia. Igual estamos para servir, y más que nunca se está haciendo el sueño bolivariano con estos trabajos, con estos que trabajamos unidamente todos, y bueno, esperamos que el doctor Sunil lo podamos traer ahora para el encuentro de CIRIEC Latinoamérica, que se va a hacer en Costa Rica. Vamos a hacerle luego su debida invitación cuando nos pase el correo Leandro, para tenerlo y poder charlar y conversar con él ahora en la última semana de julio de 2023. Igualmente que a todos ustedes les estaré enviando el boleto. Bueno, un fuerte abrazo desde Costa Rica y que tengan un excelente día. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, don Federico. A continuación presentaremos al doctor en economía Sunil Ray desde India. Él se ha desempeñado como director del AN-SINA Instituto de Ciencias Sociales en Patna. Fue decano de la Facultad de Ciencias Sociales y director del Centro de Estudios Económicos y Políticas de la Universidad Central del Sur de Bihar. El profesor Ray tiene más de 37 años de experiencia en investigación y docencia en el campo del ambiente económico, desarrollo, política económica, desarrollo rural y economía institucional. Obtuvo su doctorado a través del Instituto para el Cambio Social y Económico en Bangalore. Fue galardonado con la beca Senior del Ministerio Federal Alemán en Educación e Investigación para realizar una cooperación indo-alemana para trabajar en el paradigma de desarrollo alternativo. Ha trabajado en varios países de consultoría con el Banco Mundial y otras organizaciones internacionales. Ha publicado diferentes artículos en extensas revistas nacionales e internacionales de renombre. Es autor de varios libros, entre ellos Crecimiento y Protección Industrial en la India, Recursos Naturales, Organización y Vínculos Tecnológicos, y coautor del libro Teorizando el Desarrollo Cohesivo como un paradigma alternativo, entre otros. Para el tema del día de hoy, el nacimiento de un paradigma de desarrollo alternativo, el despliegue del modo de producción transformador, el doctor Sunil nos va a hablar sobre el desarrollo cohesivo, cómo se concibe aquí como paradigma de desarrollo alternativo para poner en marcha y evitar una crisis de civilización. Es una alternativa al paradigma de desarrollo dominante que tiene sus raíces en el sistema de capital y ha perdido su atractivo debido a su devastador acto contra la humanidad y la naturaleza. Sus amarres están anclados en los principios de solidaridad entre los humanos por un lado y los humanos y la naturaleza por el otro. Rechaza el individualismo metodológico y lo reemplaza por el altruismo recíproco. La lógica del capital busca aquí establecer un orden metabólico social radicalmente diferente. En el marco de la cooperación integral, el desarrollo se redefine en el sentido de que los grupos desfavorecidos o subordinados, que están excluidos de diversas formas de poder en todos los aspectos de la vida, incluidos los económicos, sociales, políticos, ambientales, pueden organizarse con su conciencia compartida en grandes temas para construir una comprensión colectiva sobre su objetivo de desarrollo. Agradecemos escribir sus preguntas en los chats que tenemos en diferentes redes sociales para al final de la presentación del Dr. Sunil estarles respondiendo. A continuación, daremos el espacio al Dr. Sunil para que nos converse sobre este tan interesante tema. Bienvenido, Dr. Sunil. Welcome, Dr. Sunil.
Yeah. Shall I begin now? Pamela, are you able to hear me? Pamela, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Shall I start now?
Yes, you can start now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pamela, for your introduction. It's a very, very important for me. You have introduced me to a large number of scholars who come from Latin America countries. I am very thankful to you. Let me tell you.
Gracias, Pamela, por presentarme ante este gran número de académicos de Latinoamérica.
Yes. Now, let me tell you very honestly and frankly that is Professor Leandro Morias who has given this opportunity, opened up the opportunity for me to develop a bridge or relationship with some scholars like you and open up the space for interaction on the different issues related to development of especially of the third world countries like India or the Latin American countries or African countries.
Permítame agradecerle al doctor Moraes por su conexión para permitirme expresarles a ustedes, académicos de Latinoamérica, nuestra experiencia en países como India y África.
Actually, it's Leandro who, when I organized a seminar, before that, I started my journey on this to work on this area some 2012, some 10 years ago.
De
And my
hecho,
first paper was Economics of Solidarity, Economics of the 21st Century. That was published in 2012. And then I was encouraged to work more on this area. And then I organized an international conference, or rather seminar, invited best minds of the world. And it is here that Professor Leandro, fortunately, was there, and he presented a fantastic, very, very stimulating paper. And this is the book, this is the Asian edition, this is the European edition, the same book. In this book, Leandro's paper also is there. Now, there I developed a theory of cohesive development, different based on the solidarity economics. And from there, once I did, so I was offered a fellowship by the government of Germany to work more on this area, to deepen it further. So theoretical part of it, I deepened further to a large extent. And then finally, this one came out as what is called an occasional paper. Now, the one which I'm going to present it before you is the summary and summary of this paper. But before I present, I must express my gratitude to some of you. Apart from Professor Leandro, I must say Professor Roberto, Professor Federico, Professor Olmedo, Professor Francisco, Professor Monirata, Professor Laura Panesha, Professor Joan, Professor Daniel Mestius, and Professor Pamela. Of course, I never know personally to any of them, but then we had this internet interaction through the internet. I learned about them. Some interaction was there, and I'm really grateful to every one of you to have given me an opportunity to share my thoughts, my understanding of development with you all. That is a great thing for me. And I'm going to present now to you about what exactly. Now, can I make the presentation right now? Can I start the presentation?
Do you hear me? Sunil, please, do you hear me?
Shall I start the presentation now?
Sunil, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you hear me, Sunil? Sunil,
Yes.
please, do you hear me?
Yeah, shall I start the presentation, Leandro?
Sunil.
Are you able to hear me?
No. Yes, I can hear you, but you need to stop the moment to do the translation, please.
Okay. Now I'll stop for a while. Now let the translator translate it. Yes, I got it.
When you speak, please.
Okay.
Stop a bit for the translation and go on. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Excelente. El profesor Sunil Ray nos comenta sobre la importancia de la teoría de desarrollo cohesivo y cómo ha interactuado con diferentes profesores y ha recibido una beca del gobierno alemán para trabajar en estos temas. Y ahora el profesor nos va a dar su charla. Adelante, doctor.
Okay.
Okay, you can start now, Dr. Ray.
Okay. Now, the title of my presentation, as you could see, is a birth of an alternative development paradigm, unfolding transformative mode of production. This is the title of my presentation.
El título de mi presentación es el nacimiento del paradigma de desarrollo alternativo y que muestra un modo de producción diferente.
Okay. Next slide.
Pamela, sigue la otra página.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Now, what is that I am after? What is that I want to examine? What is that I am? How the alternative development paradigm unfolds. I have examined in my entire presentation how the alternative development paradigm unfolds with new, you see, increase. Why don't you just expand it? I mean, let the script be a little bigger. Pamela, just why don't you
Pamela,
expand it? Please
si por
expand
favor
it
puedes
further so that people
expandir
can hear, see you.
y hacer
Yeah,
más
expand
grande.
it further. Bigger. Okay. Now you see this, my biggest question is that, my question has been, what is that principles of organizing the economic and society? Is it that we should continue to follow the rules of capitalism for development, or shall we follow the same classical socialism and then develop the society? Because both are in the crossroad. As I will show you later, the organizing principles from emanating from capitalism has failed considerably throughout the world. And then socialism also has failed, classical socialism. Now, you can translate it.
El doctor Sunil Ray nos comenta sobre la importancia de examinar cómo el paradigma de modelo alternativo promueve una base epistemológica como resultado de los movimientos de resistencia y otras iniciativas de transformaciones radical alrededor del mundo en contra de la globalización y los sistemas socioeconómicos en las instituciones que crean y reproducen distribuciones desiguales de poder y que además perpetúan la discriminación y la dominación de humanos sobre otros humanos y sobre la naturaleza. Además, se cuestiona si el capitalismo es el modelo a seguir.
So we are searching for it. Everywhere people have been searching. But now we need to create a space which is different from the both. And has really probed me. This really provoked me, encouraged me to look for a different paradigm.
Y estos cuestionamientos y estas nuevas alternativas me han llevado a proponer un nuevo paradigma.
So what I did, for last 5 years, I went through the literature from different countries where the anti-systemic movements against capitalism, against globalization, against the socio-economic system, repression, discrimination, and environmental destruction, the struggle. I have studied the history of the struggle especially of the Latin American countries, particularly.
Lo que he hecho en los últimos 5 años es revisar la literatura de la globalización y los movimientos que van en contra de estos sistemas. Y he logrado profundizar en la literatura, particularmente de América Latina.
And also, I have studied that radical transformative initiatives by NGOs and civil society organizations in many parts of the world. How really? So I have tried to draw lessons from their development, from this struggle, as well as radical transformative initiatives taken by the people around the world.
También lo que he hecho es aprender cómo estos nuevos paradigmas me pueden permitir promover y dar a los escolares, a los académicos, nuevas herramientas que permitan la promoción de teorías alternativas de desarrollo.
And then the lessons that I learned, based on that, I have developed a theoretical structure of the alternative development paradigm and showing how the rise of another world from within the metabolism of the capital system is historically inevitable. That is,
y también ha aprendido cómo estas nuevas teorías nos pueden permitir dar una composición teórica que nos permita desarrollar nuevos paradigmas.
is next. Now, the structure of my presentation. First question, anybody will ask, why do we need an alternative development paradigm?
Cualquiera se preguntaría por qué necesitamos un paradigma de desarrollo alternativo.
Then I analyze the lessons. What are the lessons that I draw from these resistance movements or the anti-systemic movement against globalization, exploitation, discrimination, and at the same time, what are the lessons that I learned from the radical transformative initiatives around the world?
Luego, las lecciones que promuevo y que he aprendido de los movimientos de resistencia, los cuales se basan en sistemas que promueven la transformación radical con iniciativas alrededor del mundo.
Then, on the basis of the lessons that I draw, I develop a new paradigm. I call it cohesive development.
Y luego de todas estas lecciones que he aprendido, desarrollé el paradigma que llamo desarrollo cohesivo.
Then I examine a new mode of production is emerging. How the new, I call it solidaristic mode of production. It is different from Marxian analysis in the post-capitalist development. It is not like in a Marxian analysis, you have a from capitalistic mode of production, there's a social revolution, and then you have a socialistic mode of production. But here, I make a departure. I say, no, we are going to have a different solidaristic mode of production, which is different.
Luego, analizo un modo de producción distinto, al cual llamo modo solidario de producción, que va más allá de las teorías marxistas. Y lo que hago es proponer un modelo de desarrollo social que sea más incluyente.
Then I give some conclusion, my concluding remarks.
Y finalmente doy unas conclusiones, mis comentarios finales.
Okay, next slide, please. Pamela, next slide. Yeah. Now, let me explain to you that many of you know, every one of you may be knowing that what is the problem with the existing development paradigm.
Permítame explicarles cuáles son los problemas del existente paradigma de desarrollo.
Now, as you know, that existing development paradigm, which is dominating the most of the parts of the world, is arising out of the capital system. It is the capitalism, the capital system, that designs and shapes the mainstream development paradigm.
El paradigma existente de desarrollo se promueve y se basa en el capitalismo. Es el capitalismo el que moldea y diseña las corrientes actuales de desarrollo.
Now, this particular system cannot expand. It has its own contradiction. So it is failing to expand further.
Este sistema puede y sigue expandiéndose.
Now, for example, you have the recession. Now, before 2008 collapse, financial collapse, you had the recession, but after 2008, the financial collapse, there is a recession all over. It's a huge problem of the system.
Por ejemplo, la gran recesión del 2008, las personas tuvieron un impacto directo en su economía alrededor del mundo.
And then look at, to rectify the problem, to overcome this problem, each government has been following Keynesian package. The package which was given during the Great Depression in 1930s, they are repeatedly, the same package is applied to overcome the problems of recession, but could not overcome it. It is continuing now.
Y los gobiernos han aplicado paquetes keynesianos que causaron un impacto directo a la economía en los 40 y lo implementan repetitivamente en nuestros países.
Then the problem, another serious problem, who is this problem? Then another serious problem is that real economy. Real economy means where the production takes place, employment takes place, it is sinking. And it is sinking because now finance economy has overtaken. And financial economy, as you know, and Piketty has shown the rate of profit, the rate of return on capital is way higher than the rate of economic growth. So there is a shrinkage of the real economy. It cannot further expand and it cannot create employment.
Y el problema real es que la economía está disminuyendo. Hay una disminución clara y evidente del ingreso y esto afecta la economía.
Okay. Now, next problem is a very serious problem. It's called incessant, it's a commodification problem. Now, basic question is that you have a capital system. The logic of capital is that to expand to whatever the natural resources that you have, convert them into commodity, sell it, make more profit, more profit, more profit, and more use of the resources. So commodification of the nature. And as a result of which, today we are facing the planetary crisis, climate change, and resource depletion.
Y un problema muy serio es la comodificación incesante de nuestros productos, lo que causa una crisis a nivel planetario con problemas incluso de medio ambiente y un declive evidente en las condiciones de producción.
And as a result of which, you find this metabolic rift is taking place, is a rupture in the interdependent exchange relation between human and nature. Is a rupture, the rift has taken place between the two, human and nature.
Y un resultado evidente de esto es una ruptura entre los seres humanos y la naturaleza y la relación de estos dos.
Human beings gradually getting alienated from the conditions that are formed to ensure the survival of the humans. So gradually people, the human beings are getting alienated because of this commodification, resource depletion, and so on and so forth.
Los seres humanos gradualmente se han alineado con estas incesantes comodificaciones que afectan la economía.
Absolutely. Now, apart from the environmental destruction, shrinkage of the real economy, and no, the biggest another social problems like your unprecedented rise in inequality all over the world. Then nature's misery is a joblessness, unemployment it means, and loss of control on assets and loss of social cohesion. So much of disintegration between the people. Unemployment is rising, inequality is rising, all this has been happening over time. Now it has increased, is simply touching the point of no return.
Ujú. Esto ha causado una elevado aumento de el desempleo, la inequalidad, el impacto a la naturaleza, y esto es un fenómeno que sigue creciendo y continúa impactando a nivel social.
Now, the problem is that the mainstream development paradigm, which developed during the 16th to 18th century in England, based on the methodological individualism, private property, and representative democracy, they are proving to be the enemies of civilization of the planet Earth.
Ahora, el sistema económico individualista democrático ha manifestado como uno de los principales enemigos de nuestra sociedad.
Next. Now, now let me explain little bit. I don't want to, only very little touching upon what are the social movements, the different anti-systemic movements against globalization, environmental degradation, racial and gender discrimination, exploitative system. All this I have documented in my paper. So I'm not going to explain. These are the types of movement. Again, another world is possible. First World Social Forum also explain what the another world is possible. All these are there. These are the something which are all documented in my paper.
Estos movimientos antisocial, antisistemáticos son ejemplos que no voy a explicar ahora y que se explican en mis artículos. Por ejemplo, la globalización, el impacto negativo en el ambiente, todos estos los explico en mis artículos.
Now, the most important thing that I could learn from Zapatista movement in Mexico is a very unique movement. After 1840 was the anti-systemic movement. 1840, it was a French Revolution in Europe, that kind of thing. After that, it is this next, what's called movement, and which is different from French movement. It was finally taken over by the bourgeoisie, big capital, but not Zapatista movement. It's a very unique in the history. So I learned quite a bit of Zapatista movement that started in 1990s.
En 1840 se da un movimiento a nivel importante en Francia, lo cual es distinto, eso sí debemos decirlo, de la burguesía y impacta en los movimientos que se dan en Francia en 1990.
The most important thing that one learns from it is not only an indigenous, not to be called confined to the indigenous movement. It is not only against globalization. It is a struggle to get out of colonialism, struggle for decoloniality. And it has a different cosmovision. That is something very important for us to take note of. Zapatista movement teaches the world with a different cosmovision. It's a vision which is neither capitalistic nor classical socialism. It's a different kind of a vision which is completely different from all this existing method, and it is very unique in its own way. I learned it.
Los movimientos indígenas han literalmente batallado en contra de lo que ahora llamamos decolonización. Y lo más importante es esta visión de mundo que nos ofrecen, no solamente para entender nuestra realidad, pero también para impactar la economía. Y lo más importante es la cosmovisión del mundo, esta visión del mundo que presentan y que ofrecen nuevas realidades.
And then we have Buen Vivir, the philosophy of Buen Vivir is Equator. Now, living well, not living better, is a very powerful philosophy. And the most important thing that you learn from is the human beings and nature. There isn't dualism between the two. They are together. They're same. The two parts of the same. And therefore, the Andean philosophy, that is harmony and harmony amongst the people, harmonious development. That is something Buen Vivir teaches us, the Andean culture. And this is one thing that should be taken very seriously today if you want to save the entire Earth, the planet Earth, from its extinction, is live well, but certainly not live better. Live well means not better means you are not inviting competition, you are inviting cooperation. And you want to live in harmony with the nature. That is very important thing for us to talk about. So much so, today you find Bolivia and Ecuador, they have put this they have put it in the constitution and say the mother earth has the right to survive, flourish and grow. Therefore, nobody has the right to destroy mother earth. I think this is the first time in the world these two countries have put it in their constitution. The kind of place that is accorded is something very unique in the whole of this world.
Uh-huh. El movimiento del buen vivir, no vivir mejor, ha impactado directamente a la economía mundial. Particularmente países como Ecuador y Bolivia incluso lo han incluido en sus constituciones. Es vital entender que vivir bien con la naturaleza y con otros seres humanos es un concepto social, económico que nos va a permitir el crecimiento.
Absolutely. Now, secondly, apart from this movement, as I told you, transformative initiatives around the world, maybe in many of the Latin American countries, Argentina, Cuba, Bolivia, many other countries, in Asia also, there are many countries. I have seen in my own country, in one district, 50,000 women from the poorest families came together and started developing agriculture on their own, have different non-farm sector together on their own, and ensuring their livelihood to a large extent. So these are the initiatives being taken. Look at Argentina, look at even Cuba. There are many other countries in the world, especially in Latin American countries, different transformative initiatives being taken at the local level by civil societies or the NGO. We learn lessons from them for the new development process that I'm talking about.
Hay iniciativas interesantes en países como Argentina, Cuba, Bolivia, que permiten el desarrollo local, particularmente en Argentina y Cuba, son ejemplos que nos permiten ver estas iniciativas.
Next. Now, lessons, very briefly. What are the lessons that we learned? These are the things that I explained about the movements. Now, what are the lessons that we learned from these movements and the transformative initiatives taken by NGOs or civil societies? First, they teach us, reject homogenization principle of the mainstream development paradigm based on which market model of globalization is built. Now, everybody knows the planning that you have, they assume, and most of the cases, economists, they do it. They assume everywhere people are homogeneous. Whether somebody comes from Bolivia, somebody comes from India, somebody comes from the tribal area of some other country, or imagine everybody is behavior same before a market. That is what they assume. Accordingly, they plan. The planning of economic development to do with this assumption. These movements show, these lessons that I draw, they say that it is a wrong assumption based on which this model of development is developed.
Ahora, ¿cuáles son algunas de las lecciones que hemos aprendido y que analizo en mi ponencia de hoy? Definitivamente el rechazo al principio de homogenización, que es el paradigma de desarrollo actual, que se basa en un modelo de globalización, está orientado a un modelo globalizado. Ahora, hay países como Bolivia y también como India que han promovido un desarrollo económico el cual impacta a la sociedad, pero hay conceptos los cuales son erróneos, principalmente los basados en modelos de globalización.
When this economic model was developed and imposed by the colonial ruler like Europe and then America, imposed on the third world countries especially, when it's the 16th, 18th century, they followed the footsteps of Newtonian law of gravity. According to the law of gravity, every human being is an atom. So gravitational pulls and pressure will be equal to everybody, whether they are in the northern hemisphere or in the southern hemisphere, whether they are in the forest or in the plain. Makes no difference. That is how they have derived. But the Einstein's theory of what is called quantum mechanics, it was discovered in the quantum mechanics that individuals are not atoms at the subatomic level. Individuals are not atoms. They are together. One has to refer to another. They attract each other because you see, these individuals cannot be like, they say that according to that, it doesn't vary. They are different. They do not affect each other. Somebody comes from Bolivia, somebody comes from Ecuador, somebody comes from India. Now, each and everybody has different culture, different sentiment, emotions, and so on and so forth. And therefore, there is a variation.
Ahora, ¿cuándo fue este sistema económico creado? Obviamente fue implementado por los colonialistas en el siglo XVII, XVIII. Ahora, tenemos que tomar en cuenta que la teoría de la mecánica cuántica de Einstein básicamente promueve seres humanos los cuales están juntos, que se atraen unos a otros. Por ejemplo, una persona de Bolivia, de Ecuador y de India tienen rasgos culturales distintos, pero de alguna forma se complementan porque somos seres humanos.
Therefore, we need to recognize diversity in all forms and then construct a world where many worlds fit. This is what I learned from Zapatista movement.
Luego, tenemos que aprender de esto y construir movimientos sociales que nos permitan la integración.
And then, representative democracy of the liberal paradigm based on private property, individual rights, and market economy as organizing principles of economic and social life. These need to be replaced. That is, we know that representative democracy is creating a havoc, serious problem everywhere, especially third world countries like India and Africa. And it should be replaced by participatory democracy. And this is what, again, I have learned from the experiment that is being taken up by the Mexican revolutionary people.
Uh-huh. Luego, tenemos que comprender, es imperativo comprender que rechazar la democracia representativa, este paradigma que se basa en la propiedad privada, en los derechos individuales, en la economía de mercado, que organiza los principios económicos y la vida social, y reemplazarlo por una democracia participativa. Hay ejemplos claros en India y en África. Por Por ejemplo, la Revolución Mexicana es un sistema que podemos usar como modelo.
The next lesson that I learned, again, from the movements taking place all over the Latin America, because Latin America now is the epicenter of change, of transformation. As I could go through, there are 11 countries that have been rejecting the mainstream development paradigm that has come from the Europe or American capitalism. It is Mexico, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Peru, Chile, Honduras, Bolivia, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, and Cuba. You have this many countries, maybe many other countries. Now, it is an epicenter of change. And what is that they teach us? These movements abide by the principles of living well. As I told you earlier, it is not living better. It means that non-competitive cosmovision, it should be solidarity between the people. And that is what even Leandro's work and that Brazil has been following on economics of solidarity and many other countries, especially in the Latin America. So we need to need integration, but we do not need disintegration. Today's development paradigm disintegrates us. We want integration, not disintegration. We want equity, not deprivation.
Uh-huh. Luego, una lección que aprendí proviene básicamente de Latinoamérica, la cual es el epicentro del cambio, de la transformación, del desarrollo. Hay países que claramente nos dan ejemplos de esto, como México, Venezuela, Perú, Bolivia, Honduras, que nos promueven y nos ubican en este principio de vivir bien, no vivir mejor, lo cual implica una cosmovisión, una visión de mundo no competitiva. Por ejemplo, el trabajo del profesor Leandro y lo que han hecho sus colegas en Brasil es un claro ejemplo de cómo debemos vivir y cómo debemos repensar nuestra sociedad. Por ejemplo, tenemos que tomar en cuenta de que no, este concepto de dualismo social, el cual disuelve la naturaleza.
Now, we do not want to see society and nature are separate. They are two sides of the same coin. They are not separate, they are together, society and nature. That is another lesson that we learn from these movements.
Luego, debemos aprender que la naturaleza y la sociedad no están para nada separadas. Son parte integral de nuestra sociedad. No son para nada modelos separados. Más bien tenemos que verlos como integradores.
And then, when I talk about well-being, we should really see that co-evolution, when you say well-being to be improved, we need to recognize that fact that nature and human beings, they evolve together. It's a co-evolution. It is not the human beings are evolving and nature is at the cost of nature. That is not well-being. Well-being means evolution, co-evolution of both human and nature.
Luego tenemos que comprender que el concepto de vivir bien es una evolución tanto de la naturaleza como el ser humano.
This is not that I'm talking. This is what I learned from these movements. And second, another thing also, these movements has taught us that, economic growth is not the only means of development. Economic growth, everywhere people talk about growth. At what? Question is that, at what cost? At whose cost? And who gains out of the growth? If Ecuador grows by exporting its nature-based product to the big countries, but when Ecuador falls short of the nature tomorrow and creates another problem for the country as a whole, do you like such development? No, not at all. We need to see a growth. We need to, at what cost the growth is taking place. If the cost to the nature is very high, we should abandon it. If the growth is for the few people, we should abandon it. Growth, if it is there, it should be for everybody. And therefore, not only economic growth, but also we need to see the qualitative growth that I'm going to talk about later.
Luego, esto lo he aprendido de los movimientos. El crecimiento económico debe ser social. Si este crecimiento impacta de manera negativa la naturaleza y el ser humano, debemos abandonarlo. Necesariamente debemos eliminarlo.
Another lesson that I learned is that you reject commodification of nature and replace it by principle of sufficiency. What does that mean by? You design a technology not for making profit. That technology is nothing but the means, but you design the means to meet the end. End is you have to eradicate the misery of human being and nature. So technology and eradicate that means and end should be designed in a way that the means should be end. Means that is technology should be designed to eradicate human and nature's misery. That is what I call principle of sufficiency.
Luego, he aprendido que debemos rechazar la comodificación de la naturaleza y principalmente reemplazarlo por lo que yo llamo el principio de suficiencia. ¿Qué es esto? Es evitar y erradicar la miseria humana.
Next. Next is, coordinates of transformation may arise from cooperation, competition that I have spoken about. And then next is that create, that's something, niche institution to be created. Niche institution to be created. Next is that niche institution. What is niche institution? Now, niche institution, according to evolutionary theory, that Darwin's theory of evolution. Now, environment creates space for the species to grow. According to standard evolutionary theory, environment, this is what I borrowed the idea from evolutionary biology. That is niche NCT, niche creation theory. And lessons that I learned from them is that in many countries of the world, especially in the Latin American countries, you see the different types of small group, different cooperatives, different forms of cooperatives, self-help group, and all that have been taking place everywhere throughout the world, especially the third world countries, in countries like India also, and in Latin American countries. This is what I call niche institution. Here, the theoretical background is, according to the standard theory of evolution, it is according to that, is a selection, is basically, through the natural selection, environment creates a place for the species to evolve. But there is niche creation theory. They say that species, the human beings, can create the environment and human beings can evolve. Just reversing it. That is another theory which has come up. That means that if the human beings can create space for themselves, they themselves can evolve. This today, in many parts of the world, including America, you find new cooperatives are coming up. They create, here the laborers, workers, the workers, the people who own it, owner, worker, are all same. They are working, they are investing their own capital, they are together, they are trying to do something on their own. This kind of niche institutions are coming up all over in many parts of the world. So these movements have taught that it is possible for people to create an atmosphere for themselves to take a lead. They don't have to depend on the environment to be created by the market. They themselves can create an environment and grow. That is what exactly the niche institution I'm talking about.
Uh-huh. Luego, la teoría de la evolución de Darwin básicamente permite a las especies desarrollarse y crecer. Por ejemplo, en países del mundo de Latinoamérica, en tanto como India también, el desarrollo de las cooperativas es fundamental. Esta teoría de desarrollo, el cual permite que la selección natural promueva la evolución. O sea, hay un espacio para que las personas puedan desarrollarse y cambiar.
Now, there are few things that, so therefore your development model changes. If you really learn these lessons, and based on these lessons that I've explained, you have a different theory now. So here, you do have a not competition, but cooperation. You have a solidarity between the people. Your dialectics of progress will be different based on the reciprocal altruism instead of selfish individual or methodological individualism. So these are the forces, new forces which are crystallized, coming up and giving a development, new development concept. I call it cohesive development.
Luego hay un patrón de desarrollo el cual nos permite desarrollarnos. Por ejemplo, la dialéctica del progreso de la sociedad humana es gobernada por la ley del altruismo recíproco, no el individualismo metodológico. Esto es a lo que yo llamo desarrollo cohesivo.
Here, I will talk about it right later. We all assuming each and every individual, every one of us is selfish by birth. Huh? This is what we assume, but this is biologically wrong. All development model based on this assumption that individuals are profit-seeking, individuals selfish. This is wrong. Individuals have triggers, and there are many biological studies that I have gone through. They show that evolutionary biology also show, and the genetics also show it is wrong. So there is a reciprocity. I will explain to you later. So a human being can exchange or develop relationship not only based on selfish interest, but also have a reciprocal relationship of a different kind. So that is that once we assume that, so the methodological individualism or selfish individualism or egoistic individualism, that will be replaced. So we'll see individual in different plane altogether. Once you see individuals in that way, you have a different model of change altogether.
Ahora, definitivamente el individualismo como base de la economía es incorrecto, es a todas luces incorrecto. Lo que debemos hacer es promover un nuevo individualismo, el cual permita la integración social de más actores.
Now, cohesive development, the one which I have conceived, and on what the seminar took place, and large number of good people have contributed, and I want that. So I expanded the whole concept. The concept is on what basis? Very simply, social cohesion is a collective understanding and shared consciousness. Number one.
Ahora, quiero enfatizar sobre el desarrollo social y cohesivo. ¿Qué es lo que quiero decir por esto? Es básicamente el entendimiento colectivo y la compartir esos estados de conciencia.
Yes. Next. Now, next point is that it never falls. Show me the slides, please. Slides.
Pamela, muéstrale las...
Show me the slides. I want to see the slides and explain.
Pamela, muéstrale por favor la presentación del Dr. Sunil.
Slides. You are showing the slides, no? Where are the slides?
Yes, we're going to do that in a second, Dr. Ray. Pamela, si por favor puedes poner la presentación del doctor.
No, just no, the slides are there, no? Slides.
Por favor, ayudar.
One second, Dr. Ray, we're working on that. Adelante, Pamela, si por favor puedes incluir la presentación del doctor para que él pueda guiarse, por favor.
I was...
Yeah, we're working.
Slides.
Yeah.
Show me the slides.
Sí, we're working on that, Dr.
Okay.
Ray. Give us just one sec. Pamela, si por favor puedes visualizar en la pantalla la presentación para que el doctor se pueda guiar, por favor. We are working on that, Doctor. Just give us a sec. Pamela, ¿lograste subir la presentación?
Disculpen, regálenos un segundito que tenemos un problema técnico con la PPT.
Dr. Ray, so sorry, we're experiencing a technical problem. Would you please give us 1 minute?
It happens. It happens.
It happens.
It happens.
Again, very thought-provoking, those concepts, indeed. Now we're
Next
back.
one. Yeah. So, So, shall I continue now? Yes. Just previous one?
La anterior, Pamela, por favor.
Yeah, the previous one, please. Previous one.
Never falls in line. There you go, Doctor.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, I shall go ahead now. Okay. Shall I go ahead now?
Do so, please.
Okay. Now, I'm defining the cohesive development. This is a very crucial point. This is how I conceived. The first point, as I explained, next is that it should not fall in line with the existing power structure. The moment it falls in existing power structure, so again there will be a problem. So it should not fall in. Okay. Now, you explain in Spanish.
Luego, quisiera comentarles que el concepto, al desarrollar el concepto, al explicar el concepto de desarrollo cohesivo, nunca sobrecae sobre la estructura de poder existente.
Yeah, it is the unity of all subordinate groups who are powerless, cutting across social, that is caste, race, gender, and religion, economic, political, and environmental. Now, all subordinate groups together. It is not class endemic, as Marx has shown. It is different. All the deprived should be together. Either they are racially discriminated, or socially discriminated, religiously discriminated. The poor people, all these people who are deprived, so they should be together. And as a kind of, these powerless people, they should be together to see that they are being united, and they are the people who are going to offer a solution to the problem of the society and the economy at large. Next.
Es la unidad de los grupos subordinados lo que les permite tener esta interacción social. Por ejemplo, han sido privados de sus derechos fundamentales, y definitivamente la unión de estos grupos va a permitir impactar la economía en una mayor escala.
Slides, please. Slides. Again, problem. Slides are not coming. Slides.
Pamela, si puedes, por favor, nuevamente incluir las
slides.
We're working on that, Dr. Sunil Ray. Give us just 1 sec.
Okay.
Pamela, ¿logró subir la presentación?
Yeah.
Ahí estamos.
Next.
Y la próxima.
Okay. Now, next is that it must replace the logic of capital as it works in the capital scene. We need to have a different logic of capital now. Yes.
Definitivamente necesitamos reemplazar la lógica del capitalismo por uno nuevo para establecer un orden diferente social, un orden que sea más metabólico, más orgánico.
We need to stop exploiting natural resources beyond the limit where the evolution of human. We need to stop the natural resources beyond. Up to a certain point, we can use the resources, but beyond the limit, we cannot use the resources. Because then if we do it, evolution of human and nature will stop.
Definitivamente necesitamos detener la explotación de los recursos naturales más allá del límite. Nuestros recursos naturales son sagrados y son los que nos permiten nuestra interacción social. Por lo tanto, merecen respeto.
We need to promote qualitative growth for sustainable economic development, not growth, quantitative growth. We need to have quantitative growth at a certain point, but after that, we need to really go for qualitative growth.
Definitivamente necesitamos promover el crecimiento cualitativo para el desarrollo sostenible de la economía, no el cuantitativo. Es correcto que podemos crecer, pero siempre prestando atención a la calidad, al crecimiento de calidad.
Next is a deep structural change to bring equity and justice.
El próximo es el cambio estructural intenso que promueva equidad y justicia.
Now, there are two things that I would like to explain to you, and then go to the next slides. Now, these are the things you don't have to explain. I've explained only. There's a parameters, that is epistemological base, holistic cosmovision and diversity, reciprocal altruism, solidarity between humans and nature, principle of sufficiency, new logic of capital, participatory democracy, expansion of commons, and these are the points I've already explained. So we don't have to translate them into French. These are the things, basic epistemological base of the new concept, that is cohesive development, which have developed based on these parameters. Okay.
Luego voy a explicar dos conceptos claves de nuestro modelo de desarrollo cohesivo, que son la visión de mundo holística con diversidad, el altruismo recíproco, la solidaridad entre seres humanos y la naturaleza, el principio de autosuficiencia, la nueva lógica del capital o del capitalismo, la participación democrática, la expansión de comunidades y la metamorfosis cualitativa.
Yeah, next. Yes. Now, I'll just very briefly, you see, this growth is not sustainable ad infinitum. It cannot go on because there is a limited resources. And therefore, it is too difficult for us to say that, well, growth. That is something which cannot happen. Now, there are two schools of thought that talked about degrowth and also steady state economy. Now, I have been very critical of both of them. In the question is that so long as the logic of capital is there. Now, suppose there are many people talking about what is called green technology. The green technology, if it is there, it gives you a higher level of efficiency, but people will be using more and more resources because logic of capital is same. What is the logic of capital? In the capitalist system, expand, resource use, growth, and profit. Unless and until this logic changes, nothing could work.
Ahora, cuando el crecimiento no es sostenible, debemos necesariamente prestar atención a que los recursos son limitados. Hay dos escuelas o dos formas de pensamiento, de las cuales he sido crítico: el movimiento de crecimiento y la economía social de Estado. Economía social firme. Ahora, definitivamente las tecnologías verdes han promovido cambios sociales importantes y económicos, pero tenemos que tener cuidado con el crecimiento, con la expansión y con las ganancias económicas, que es lo que promueve el sistema capitalista.
Now, on one point that I'm going to make now, as I explained to you, reciprocal altruism is not human beings are selfish, it's not axiomatic truth. Adam Smith, of economics father, he conspired against the civilization, I must say, reducing the individual to self-interest maximizing principles, self-interest seeking person. No, all the genetic studies and biological studies show the individuals are both self-servicing and solidaristic. Let us accept this fact and we develop a planning or change in a different way altogether.
Ahora, el altruismo recíproco definitivamente rechaza el desarrollo cohesivo, maximizando el principio del individualismo metodológico. Ahora, los estudios de genética han experimentado y han ahondado en este tema.
Next. Now, last one I'm going to explain to you, the solidaristic mode of production. As I told you, it is away from Marxian mode of production. It's a different kind of a mode of production is emerging all over the world. Now, let us see very briefly. Marx said that it is the once the technology changes, the relations of production come in conflict with the new technology, a social revolution takes place, and then new system comes up. My argument is that there is another thing that we must know is the environmental degeneration. Because of the new technology, a lot of resources are being completed. A lot of resources are going to be exploited or are being exploited. So nature cannot withstand the social pressure. So that gives another contradiction, not the earlier contradiction between the technology and the social relation. The contradiction because of the overuse of the resources, a new contradiction is emerging. We need to recognize that. And that can be resolved only based on what is called principles of sufficiency that I've talked about.
Ahora quisiera ahondar en el modo de producción solidarista. Es claro que existe una teoría marxista de evolución de la sociedad. Mi punto es, o mi argumento es que el costo de estas nuevas tecnologías tiene que ser necesariamente analizado.
Now, this principle of sufficiency, as I explained earlier, you design the means, that is technology, for the benefit of the human beings and nature, not for making profit, but for the benefit of the human beings and nature. One that is being designed, so that should be complemented by 4 factors: new logic of capital, culture of cooperation, reciprocal altruism, and qualitative metaphysics. Next.
Ahora, este principio de autosuficiencia tiene que ser basado necesariamente en la naturaleza y los seres humanos. Tiene que ser solidarista. Por ejemplo, un nuevo orden de lógica de pensamiento del capitalismo, de una cultura de cooperación y altruismo recíproco.
Now, we have to give the new logic of capital. We need a capital, but we have to have a new logic. And that logic should be like, it should not allow us to alienate or disintegrate. We should integrate amongst the people and capital, labor, all should be together. We're fostering cohesion between labor and nature, not controlling the labor by capital. That is what the new logic of capital we need to understand. At the same time also, it is the government. It is, it's not the profit alone. There are varieties of ways people can be incentivized, encouraged to take up their activities. Not only profit that will encourage people to take up the venture. There are many other ways it can be done.
Ahora, necesariamente tenemos que repensar el sistema capitalista. Debe haber un cambio de la comodificación. El pensar solamente en ganancias es un concepto erróneo.
And then, culture of cooperation. Why should we forget that there is something, a shared identity? Now, these days, all the movements have shown that there is an emergence of a culture of shared identity. It's a new productive force. And there's something like, for example, a reinvention of the workers' cooperative, producers, community-based organizations, emergence of self-organization with new cultural practices. These are the things which are coming up. So it's a shared identity. That is something which is very different from the kind of organizations that have come up under capitalism. Next.
Luego, hay una cultura de cooperación. Por ejemplo, el, la, el compartir identidades culturales. Esto ha emergido y ha propuesto una fuerza de producción, por ejemplo, la reinvención de las cooperativas de los trabajadores o las comunidades basadas en organizaciones de autoayuda y nuevas culturas, nuevas prácticas culturales.
Next. Yeah, this I explained already what reciprocal altruism is all about. But now the qualitative, the single most important point is that qualitative of the quality metaphor purposes, that it is growth of non-material aspect of human life. We need to recognize the fact that not only the growth of material production, but also the non-material aspect we need to recognize has a great role to play. Like it's non-material forces that express, that manifest in the form of altruism, empathy, communitarianism, compassion, consciousness of, togetherness. These are the things which come from spiritual domain. You need to recognize these forces that emerge from the spiritual domain, that shape the human life, that also shape the evolutionary process. You can't discount them. Marx was over obsessed, I would say. Marx emphasized more on materialism. But materialism and matter and spirit, they are mutually constitutive. You cannot separate them separately. You cannot see them in separation. Matter and spirit to be understood together. They are mutually constitutive. Like, self-interest and solidarity. They are together. Similarly, qualitative growth and quantitative growth, they are together. They cannot be separate. So, mutual constitutivity between spirit and matter, we need to recognize. We need to recognize the qualitative growth along with the quantitative growth. Both are equally important. We need to recognize that individual solidarism, they are solidaristic at the same time selfish. These two together, they are mutually constitutive. We need to recognize these forces as a product. They are the forces that are evolving now. Yes.
Luego quisiera ahondar en el concepto de metamorfosis cualitativa. Definitivamente no podemos rechazar el concepto de espiritualidad. Por ejemplo, la materia y el espíritu no necesariamente son conceptos separados. Necesariamente tenemos que considerarlos como complementarios. La constitutividad mutua es un concepto emergente que nos promueve conceptos novedosos y que definitivamente deben ser tomados en cuenta, no solamente en el aspecto cualitativo, sino también en el cuantitativo.
Yes. Now, next. This is the conclusion. Question that all through I have asked, that the one which has they've robbed of our opportunity to grow, largest majority. Shall we follow the same line of thought? Shall we follow the same thing? Or shall we reject it? My argument, we must reject that one. We need to take up the one which is very much in favor of the people. But definitely, in the way I think, that is something which is very important for me.
Luego, para concluir, estos son algunos de mis pensamientos. Algunas preguntas que podemos analizar. ¿Cuál es el proceso transformativo por el cual la sociedad tiene que escoger para liderar hacia los conceptos sociales que nos puedan promover la solidaridad?
Yes. Now, the last point that I'm making here, when I see the cohesive development, the most important aspect of it, that, as I explained to you, mutual constitutivity, That is, these two halves, qualitative growth and quantitative growth, the two halves, HALVS, two halves, half. Similarly, half plus is equal to 1. Similarly, solidaristic and self-interest, they are mutual. Matter and spirit is mutual. Now, this is something which can be explained by quantum entanglement of physics. At the quantum entanglement at the subatomic level, as I was explained to you, that the particles, they, two particles, three more particles, even if they take thousands of miles away, they are referred to each other, they attract each other. That is a tendency between the two. And these two, even if they are going, they will be spinning in two different directions, reverse direction. But the quantum of the spin, that the identical spin, spin will be identical, but in opposite direction. That is what the quantum entanglement teaches us. Similarly, here the qualitative growth and quantitative growth, matter and spirit, they are all together. They cannot be separated. In fact, when you want to achieve a cohesive development of the people, of the deprived, of all the depressed people all over the world, it is not only the country, but at the world scale, it is the togetherness of these people who are deprived. They should come together on the basis of these forces that I'm talking about and generate different development impulses together. Thank you so much with this.
Básicamente, para concluir, debemos recordar que tanto la materia como el espíritu siempre necesariamente deben ser considerados como complementarios. Por ejemplo, el ejemplo que nos da la teoría física de las partículas que, aunque están separadas, siempre se atraen. Es definitivo que debemos posicionar o reposicionar al ser humano y al humanismo como lo más importante de la economía social. Quiero agradecer por escucharme hoy.
Now, thank you so much. I'm through. Now I'm opening for questions.
Gracias por escucharme y ahora vamos a abrir una ventana para preguntas.
I'll be very happy to have a critical remarks on what I've spoken about. I'll be too happy.
Estaría contento de recibir críticas sobre lo que acabo de exponer hoy.
Yes, Pamela.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil. Thank you very much for your exposition. Ahora vamos a darle el espacio al doctor Leandro Pereira Moraes para que nos dé sus comentarios sobre su exposición. Adelante, don Leandro.
Muy bien. Professor Sunil, thank you very much for your exposition. I had the opportunity to follow you in both moments. The first one to write this book, like participate with the discussions in India and virtually, and we discuss a lot about the cohesive development. And after, I have the opportunity to discuss also with you about this, the construction and the reflection about the alternative development paradigm. Creo que estamos en momento donde estas discusiones son muy importantes. Y usted ha puesto una serie de elementos importantes para la construcción de una forma o de formas alternativas de pensar el desarrollo, no que tú has llamado de cohesive development ou também de paradigmas alternativos de desenvolvimento. Não sei se a tradução pode ser a ele em inglês e depois pode falar em inglês e não sei como. Por favor. Pamela?
Sí, don Olmedo.
Adelante, Pamela.
Gracias. Para que le pueda, por favor, explicar a don Sonny el comentario de don Leandro.
Ya. Sí, Pamela, yo creo que lo que comentaba Leandro era que si íbamos a tener algún espacio de preguntas o finalizábamos directamente.
No, en este momento no tenemos preguntas en los chats, entonces sería el comentario final.
Sure. Dr. Sunil, thank you very much for your insights and again, very thought-provoking tenets. And unfortunately, we have no questions at this moment. So let us finish with Professor Leandro's final remarks.
Gostaria de perguntar se tenho uma, mientras outros podem estar reflexionando sobre tantas informações importantes, né, que se situa em que, como estamos em um momento onde necessitamos rever a base de produção e rever as questões de los paradigmas de consumo, como entende o momento atual pós-Covid-19 e também em momento que necessitamos, por questões climáticas, repensar as estruturas de produção e consumo, se además de lo que ha pensado, ha visto alguma experiência atual interessante, importante para aqui exponer. A tradução em inglês, por favor, se você quer, pode ser.
Oi, professor Leandro, você pode falar em inglês agora?
Sim. Sunil, please, you showed us a lot of elements to think the alternative paradigm of development. And I would like to know, in a world post-COVID, and in a world that we need to rethink the paradigms of production and consumption, if you have some real experience post-COVID-19, post-COVID-19, that you think important to talk and to expose here for us in a real country, on a real experience about this, please. Or in terms of public policies, that you have real vision about this construction in the alternative paradigm of development.
You mean to say how it is to be implemented?
Yeah.
O sea, ¿usted quiere decir cómo es implementado? Sí.
How to implement it, isn't it? You are talking about that?
¿Cómo implementarlo? ¿Sobre eso se refiere, profesor Leandro?
Sí.
You are asking me.
O alguna experiencia existente o cómo implementar.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Ray. Basically, please expand on a real experience or how it can be implemented.
Leandro, Professor Leandro, tell me what is that you want me to speak on?
Professor Moraes, você pode explicar? Eu acho que Dr. Ray não compreendeu.
Muito simples. Se existe, if there are some real experience nowadays in some country that you would like to speak for about
You want me to speak something on that?
Yes, Dr. Ray, please do so.
And this is about implementation?
No,
I'm not able to get.
Yeah, real experiences that you may expand on, please.
Explain about what? What is that I should explain, Leandro? I'm not able to get it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Do you hear?
Yeah. What is that I should explain?
Pregunto sobre la existencia de alguna experiencia importante post-COVID-19 que, de hecho, está construyendo este paradigma alternativo de desarrollo.
Yes, Dr. Ray, we would like to know if there are any current experiences based on the cohesive development theory that you can tell us a little about that, please.
You mean to say experiences of this one, is it?
Real experiences, Professor Ray. Thank you.
Now, this is,
In some conference, some region, or some that you think interesting to expose for
the
us.
whole idea is this, different movements and experiment at a local level taking place all over the world, in many places. Now, as an economist or social scientist, you learn a few lessons from them, and then you develop a cohesive thesis and understanding, and discover that what kind of evolution is going to take place tomorrow, a new society, how it is going to emerge. I have tried to chalk out, I have tried to outline, explain, look, a new society, a new idea, new development thesis is emerging. This is precisely my objective. Now, if you put all the experiences of the countries together, wherever it is taking place, now this is the lesson that I draw. And now somebody asked me once, how do you go for implementation? Now, these are the organizing principles of the economy and society I have identified based on the lessons that I draw. Now, in your place, if you want to apply these principles, you can apply on your own way. Not that the way in India we are trying to do, same way you need to do this one. It's a diversified society. So you try to implement, try to think the way you want, but basic thesis is that your principles are the one which I have stipulated. This should not be deviated. This should be kept in mind, and accordingly, you develop the strategy, develop the way you can think of implementing at your own level. For example, if the poor people in a particular locality come together and develop their own with a small capital, small non-farm activities like vegetable processing, like small manufacturing, let them. So many women have been doing in many countries. Now, if they do this kind of a thing at their own level, now it will be identity. Each and everybody of that group will be worker, will be owner, and trying to manage the affair on their own and sharing the interest or the profit or whatever it may be among themselves in a very democratic manner. This is possible. It is going on in many places. So what strategy should be adopted in a particular place? May it be Bolivia, may it be Ecuador, may it be Costa Rica, may it be India, anywhere, or Vietnam. That depends on the local conditions. Accordingly, you can develop a strategy to fulfill these principles, the one which I have stipulated. I think this is what my objective or endeavor or efforts are.
El doctor Ray nos comenta de que la teoría de desarrollo alternativo es sin duda alguna una teoría de evolución que promueve una sociedad nueva. Su objetivo básicamente es repensar nuestras sociedades, y él nos da el ejemplo de gente en estado de pobreza y nos da específicamente la noción de que debe ser necesariamente implementado en nuestras propias culturas y de nuestras propias formas. Él expone ejemplos de países como Bolivia, Ecuador, Costa Rica, India, los cuales han adaptado estos principios a sus situaciones específicas.
Very, very nice. Professor Sunny, I am, and the organizers, I am receiving some message about how can the people send some questions by the YouTube. I don't know how I can answer it, but I have here one question. Please, Professor Sunny, could you explain a bit about the relation between alternative development and climate crisis, that this we need with short terms rules to do the development, and how do you think about the relation between alternative paradigm of development and climate crisis in this moment?
And employment, already, and employment you're talking about, no? A relationship between alternative development paradigm and employment. Am I right? You're talking about employment?
Climate crisis, I think that's here.
Climate change.
Employment.
Yeah,
You're
Dr. Ray.
talking about
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ray. Would you please expand on the relationship between cohesive development and climate crisis change?
Yeah.
Oh, climate crisis. Climate crisis.
Climate crisis change.
Okay. Alternative development, climate crisis is very important. It's a very important concept, very important aspect. You see, this when you have cohesive development, is basically there are elements that I've explained to you, the principle of sufficiency. You are not going for larger utilization of the natural resources. The basic principle is that you have to have a limit beyond which resources cannot be utilized. Now, what is happening? What is happening to the climate crisis? You see, this is crisis taking place of CO2 emission, carbon dioxide emission. And why the emission is too much? Emission is too much because you're utilizing the resources, and per unit of production, it emits carbon dioxides. More production, more emission of the resources, more emission of the carbon dioxide. And once the carbon dioxide, CO2 emission increases and increases the heat of the universe, planet, and therefore, heat, whatever the heat is there, that doesn't allow it to go up to the atmosphere. So the climate crisis takes place. The basic reason for climate crisis is nothing more than what's called the type of production system that you have and the consumption pattern. And production system and consumption pattern. And this production system is allowing resources to be utilized more and more for more profit, more production and more profit. It has to be stopped. It has to be stopped beyond the limit, because not only climate crisis, but also evolution of both human and nature, what I call is co-evolution, that is stopping. And different types of crises is coming up. And it's very difficult to visualize what kind of problem your country is going to face tomorrow, what kind of problem our country is going to face tomorrow. It is something as a universal planetary crisis that is coming up. It's precisely because the type of consumption pattern that we are following, and at the same time production pattern that we are following, is a highly capitalistic mode of production. More profit, more use of resources, that has been going on, which has to be stopped beyond a point. That is what cohesive development is talking about, the cohesion between the people to decide that how much interest that you have for the resources for growth, and accordingly you can develop a thought or a culture, because social metabolism, nothing but flow of energy and matter. flow of energy and matter, flow of energy and resources from the nature to the human beings use. Now, if the order changes, now in America, for example, average American consumption of the resources is much, much, much more than average Bolivian or average Indian.
Sí,
Now, the
profesor
resource,
Leandro.
their culture is like that. Our culture is that. They go to a tribal area, aboriginal places, Amazon forest, the people who are living, their resources consumption is much less, but still they are surviving. Similarly, even if you talk about Indians or Bolivians and compare with the American, the culture is different. Therefore, their resource consumption is much higher, but our resource consumption much lower. But at the same time, production pattern is geared to fit to those geared to serve their consumption, as a result of which production is, I said. Therefore, cohesive development framework talks about your principle of sufficiency. And there, you design your technology, use your technology, you use the resources for meeting your ends, to see that misery of both human and nature completely goes off. That is what exactly it is all about.
Sí, profesor Leandro, definitivamente existe una vinculación entre el desarrollo cohesivo y el impacto de la crisis climática. Por ejemplo, el concepto de autosuficiencia debe necesariamente ser analizado. No podemos utilizar los recursos en forma discriminada. Por ejemplo, la emisión de CO2 hacia el medio ambiente es un impacto directo de los sistemas de producción que quieren más y más ganancias. Esto debe ser detenido. Esto nos da un ejemplo de lo que yo llamo la miseria del ser humano y la naturaleza. Esto tiene un impacto directo en la utilización de los recursos.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to tell you, Professor Ray, that we have here a lot of questions now, but unfortunately, we do not have time to continue this interesting reflection. We have some questions about the role of the state, the government, the role of the intermarket in the construction of this new model. We have other questions concerning about if we can say as a systemic paradigm, because you relate economic, social, and environmental. But unfortunately, we do not have more time to continue. We are here almost 2 hours, but I think that we can put here a seed or some seeds to continue in other moments this reflection. But before to conclude this interesting and important speech, I would like to invite Mr. Federico to do the conclusions, and after Pamela to conclude definitively this moment. But I'd like to register here out my thanks for you for this interesting moment here. Federico.
Ok, bueno. Doctor Sunil, muy interesante lo que habló de las cooperativas de trabajadores. Bueno, dentro de la propuesta de este paradigma, ¿sigue considerando o no a las cooperativas tradicionales, a las cooperativas de autogestión o de trabajadores? Y hay un modelo muy interesante, imagino que lo debe conocer, pero está usted también nexos con Alemania, que son las cooperativas de cogestión, un modelo muy alemán que también ha tenido mucho éxito en Costa Rica. Pero aunado a todo esto, su modelo, es cierto que los pobres son los que necesitamos ayudar más, pero en Costa Rica para su modelo se da un detalle. Hay tanta ayuda gubernamental que hay un punto mínimo en donde las personas pobres no quieren hacer nada para salir de una pobreza de confort. ¿Cómo usted, desde el nuevo paradigma, podemos abordar esta idiosincrasia del conformismo, al menos en Costa Rica?
Dr. Ray, number one, thank you very much for your very thought-provoking remarks.
I would like to know if what you said about cooperatives was very interesting indeed. We would like to know if the cooperative movement, based on the German movement, basically says that poor people sometimes tend to reject help from the government. What can be done to avoid this?
Even to the talking about the cooperative movement.
Yes, Dr. Ray.
Yeah, cooperation even is a cooperative. Now this this is an area that need to be addressed in a different. There are many examples one can cite where the new cooperatives are successful, coming out very successfully. But there are examples where the old types of cooperatives are just getting destroyed, not really serving the purpose. Now the question is that the conscious attempt being made, uh, in a different framework, but it is quite likely that that is the only way through which we can survive. It's difficult for us to go by what is called individual ownership and then trying to get something. Employment, for example, has become a serious problem, unemployment. Now, how do you really address the problem of unemployment? And it's again, we need to really look for different types of production system. Now, it is here the different types of cooperatives of this kind, where the people, the workers themselves are the owner. They themselves can they themselves can own. They will work. It is something. It's not an ideal thought. It has been working in some places properly. So if it is being streamlined that way, I think we'll be able to succeed to a large extent as compared to the kind of failure that you are having at the moment with the private ownership at the local level. I'm saying the small entrepreneurship is a niche structure, niche institutions it has been created, number millions. So that has the possibility of reducing the problems of poverty and unemployment to a great extent.
Sí, definitivamente el movimiento cooperativo es un ejemplo de que promueve diferentes sistemas de producción que pueden ayudar a la economía social y a la integración de los trabajadores.
See, the one more comment I would like to make. Initially, in this, we need to go by a certain visualization. It's difficult to get out of what is called the present practices. Now, present practices have been doing that for last 200 years. Now, the question before us, shall we continue with the present practices with all these difficulties, or we must get out of it? If you have to get out of it, what is the way out? That is the question I posed before myself. And I could come out with this answer, the answer that I have given to you. This is the only way through which, well, there could be some changes here and there. The method, the way I have thought about, but some of the basic things is completely cannot be undone. You have to take care of that one and proceed. Otherwise, I don't think there is any other way we can think of surviving with dignity in this planet Earth in the next generation.
Quisiera finalmente hacer un comentario sobre las prácticas actuales. Y la pregunta que someto a consideración es, ¿debemos continuar con las prácticas actuales, incluso con las dificultades que estamos enfrentando? Definitivamente hay formas de producir dignas para el ser humano y los trabajadores.
Muchas gracias, Dr. Sunil.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ray.
Ahora, bueno, ya se nos acabó el tiempo. Muchísimas gracias a todas las personas que estuvieron conectadas desde México, Colombia, Costa Rica, India, que de Brasil, ¿verdad? Que estuvieron siguiéndonos, acompañándonos por las diferentes redes sociales, por YouTube de la ECA, por el Facebook Live. de la ECA y Onda UNED. Muchísimas gracias. Muchas gracias, doctor Sunil Ray, desde la India, por su tiempo y su valioso aporte al área de la economía solidaria del mundo. Gracias al doctor Leandro Pereira de CIRIEC Brasil, al doctor Roberto Cañedo Villarreal de CIRIEC México, al doctor Juan Fernando Álvarez de CIRIEC Colombia, al doctor Federico Lee de CIRIEC Costa Rica, a don Olmedo por acompañarnos con la traducción simultánea de esta sesión, a los compañeros de Onda UNED por su gentil gestión para la transmisión de este webinar, ¿verdad? Y nos despedimos agradeciendo a todos los que nos acompañaron en diferentes medios. Nos vemos en una próxima sesión, ya que queda abierto el tema para seguir discutiéndolo más adelante. Muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas gracias a todos. Feliz cumpleaños, Pamela. Muchas gracias por todo. Y Sunil, I hope to see you in Costa Rica next year.
Shall I say something to you now? Shall I say, Federico?
Right.
I'm so thankful to all of you. You have given some place for me to articulate, to share my thoughts with some of you. It's a great thing for me. It's the first time that I have been. It's because of Professor Leandro, who has given access me to every one of you. I'm really grateful to Professor Leandro and every one of you to have patiently heard me. If you have any question, any of you have any question, and I will be really very, very happy with all critical remarks. Very happy. If you send even in Spanish also, because I get translated. Immediately I get, the system is there, so there's no problem. I'll get it translated, and I'll be happy to respond to any query. Let it be very, very critical. But, sir, we have to search for ways for our survival, not for the next generation. That is the warning. It's too difficult for us. The planet Earth is facing a serious crisis that every one of us knows. We can spend our days, but the days is coming for our next generation, for which the Earth will be absolutely, planet Earth will be absolutely uncomfortable for them. We need to create a space for them. It's not the question of environment, a question of a system, the question of system that you have. And unless and until the system that you have is replaced with a system which is meant for the majority of the people, we cannot solve our problem. We'll go ahead with the same thing again and again. Repetition will go on. We'll survive, we'll die. But finally, the problem will be nothing but what is called is a kind of complete collapse of the system. We do not want. We want to create a space for our children, our people. How do you go about it? That is exactly that I'm looking forward. And everyone, scholar like you, put your heads. There are lessons that we draw from different types of movements, different types of actions people taking. Let us see how to proceed. Maybe that this could be an entry. Maybe that if I get an opportunity, I'll come again to you and to discuss. And maybe that we'll learn from each other to a large extent to see a world with a possibility. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you did. And thanks, Leandro, for having given an access to me, to all these scholars that is there around you. Thank you, Pamela, for nicely coordinating right from yesterday. Took a lot of pain. I'm very sorry if I have committed any mistake or anything of that kind. I've tried my level best. I tried my level best to see that I'm able to be heard by all of you. Any question, please put me in the internet. That will be very happy. And this is the beginning of my relation, perhaps. And I do not want to put an end to it. I will have to continue with this kind of thing with all of your help. Thank you so much.
Obrigado pela participação.
Okay.
Thank you, Victor Sunny. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Bueno, entonces con esto nos despedimos. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos a todos de diferentes partes del mundo. Que pasen un bonito día. Hasta luego.
Bueno, a celebrar, Pamela. Ya.
Muchas gracias, don Federico.
Chao. Feliz cumpleaños.
It's my birthday.
I really do. Roberto has not spoken at all. He has been watching. Professor
Yeah.
Roberto. Yeah. I'm so happy. Yeah.
Buenas tardes,
Okay.
buenos días a todos. Hasta luego.
Chao, chao.
So, Pamela, yes. Okay.
Onda UNED. Imagen y sonido, hasta donde estés. Un espacio de la Escuela de Ciencias Sociales y Humanidades de la UNED. Hasta donde estés. Onda UNED. Acortando distancias.